It is the purpose of our lives to be conduits of love for that express purpose, to help eradicate the suffering of all sentient beings. So we must remember that our collective behavior is simply the expression of that same impulse within the human heart. And that's all that politics is. Politics is simply our collective behavior. Politics comes from the root politeia, it means of the people. So if as individuals we ask ourselves, what does it mean to be good? If as individuals we ask ourselves, what does it mean to be loving? If as individuals we ask ourselves, am I doing the right thing? Am I being forgiving? Am I being compassionate? Must I give up my judgments here? What is judgment? What is discernment? What is the path before me that love would have me walk? We must ask that question not only as individuals, we must ask it as a nation. We must ask it as a nation. You cannot be great if you're not good. And every citizen of this country is like an immune cell. Every citizen must ask that for our country. And it is to the detriment of our country when people, particularly in the name of spirituality, which could only be the most counterfeit form of spirituality, think that somehow our religious or our spiritual path justifies looking away from human suffering. There is, in fact, there is, in fact, no religious or spiritual tradition that has ever existed that gives any of us a pass, from looking straight into human suffering and our task to eradicate it in whatever way possible. In the history of the United States, it's important to remember the role that the great religious and spiritual traditions have played in the path of social justice. Abolition didn't arise from people within our government saying, let's eradicate slavery. No, it did not. It arose from the early evangelicals and Quakers. It was the people rising up, people of conscience who rose up. They stepped in, and then the path of the government was to follow. And in the women's suffragette movement, many of the leaders of the women's suffragette movement were Quakers. The whole notion that there is an inner light within every man, woman, and child, which is the great equalizer. You must do more than believe that. You must stand on that mount. You must stand on that rock. If, in fact, all of us are equal in God's eyes, and if, in fact, our task on this earth is to make it on earth as it is in heaven, then slavery must not exist. Oppression of women must not exist. White nationalism must not exist. Segregation must not exist. Mass incarceration must not exist. Racial disparity in criminal sentencing must not exist. 13 million children in the richest country in the world must not exist. 100,000 homeless children must not exist. Economic injustice must not exist. The abdication of all moral leadership in this world on the part of the United States must not exist. The desecration of the earth must not exist. All undemocratic forces must not exist. And it is the task of those of heart. It is the task of those of conscience. It is the task of the religious and the spiritual seeker to stand up at times, as the abolitionists did, as the women's suffragettes did, and as the civil rights workers did, not following but leading and making clear that shall be no more.